In this video, Scott will be referencing to a video that will be in the description below.
West Hill United is a progressive spiritual community where how you live is more important than what you believe. West Hill United is a people, a place, an idea. We are a community living out of a progressive faith, striving to make a positive difference in our own lives, the lives of others, and the world. Join us Sundays at 10:30 a.m. or connect with us at any time.
Barbara Ward was a British journalist, lecturer, and economist with a focus on the problems of developing countries. For years, she urged the wealthy Western governments to share their resources with the rest of the world and became an early advocate for sustainable development before that term became familiar. Ward founded the International Institute for Environmental and Development to build a fairer and more sustainable world using evidence, action, and influence in partnership with others. And here was her reason. We've forgotten how to be good guests, how to walk lightly on the earth as its others creatures do. Next picture, thank you. Jane Goodall, the English anthropologist and primatologist, animal welfare activist, and I had a tough time saying this word before. Conservationist, I believe is the word. She was named a United Nations Messenger of Peace and appointed as a member of the World Future Council. Years ago, she spoke to us about our place in that future. You cannot get through a single day without having impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference. You have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. Next, the words of Gaynord Nelson, born in 1916, a political leader in the state of Wisconsin. Nelson had a long-standing interest in reform, including the protection of the environment, a strong supporter of public parks and wilderness areas. He was known as the conservation governor. As a U.S. Senator, having struggled in vain for years to get his federal-level colleagues to focus on environment, he turned to the people, proposing April 22nd, 1970, as a day for Americans to speak out with the environmental cries they had faced. Approximately 20 million Americans, young and old, gathered on April 22nd, 1970, to confront the ecological troubles in their cities, states, nation, and planet, and to demand action from themselves and from the elected officials. And that was the origin of Earth Day. This is from the speech Nelson gave to mark the 25th anniversary of Earth Day. The opportunity for gradual but complete break with our destruction, environmental history, and a new beginning is at hand. We can measure up to the challenge if we have the will to do so. That is the only question. Next. And finally, the encouraging words from Everett Hale, born in 1822, an American historian, Unitarian minister, chaplain for the U.S. Senate, and active abolitionist, and author of works including The Man Without a Country. I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And I will not let what I cannot do interfere with what I can do. Offered as wisdom for the journey.
May we walk in its light.
I want to move from the tension of that into both the tension and some amazing people who are doing something right in the middle of it. I struggled with this statement. I didn't know what it meant. It often, if something is pithy and deep, I have to run at it a couple of times before I get it. And this is what I was struggling with. It's only one straw, said 8 billion people. So you got it faster than I did. It's only one straw, said 8 billion people, which of course becomes 8 billion straws. Many voices are calling us to the planet, while many of us are part of the problem. And so I wanted to start with a few voices from maybe our generation and our generation back, and just get that echo that people have been calling for care for quite some time. The readings this morning that Donna read, shared with us, were not current voices. They've been said for a while back, and here's a couple more. And you know these people, you've heard these people. You might even know if I don't tell you who said this first. It is one world, and it's in our care. For the first time in the history of humanity, for the first time in 500 million years, one species has the future in the palm of its hands. That sounded like David Attenborough, because it was. Chief Seattle Duwamish. Humankind has not woven the web of life. We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things connect. Long ago said. And Sun Bear from the Chippewa. I don't think that the measure of a civilization is how tall its buildings are, but rather how well its people have learned to relate to their environment and to their fellow human beings. Long ago voice calling us to that. We often emphasize in today, at my workplace, in your workplaces, your homes, on the news, you hear a lot about diversity, a lot about multiculturalism, but also representing all our humanity without so much hierarchy and so much division. And we talk about intercultural as in its horizontal. Today, I want to take you to some people who are living as they're young, but they're calling us to the voices of their past, their ancestors, to say, we think they were going in the right direction about this planet. Can we call you back to some of the ways that we were caring for the life that we were living? And so these younger voices are saying, what was passed down to us certainly needs to have fresh eyes, certainly needs to have some science look at it, but there's so much good in it that we need to keep passing it down. We can, if you could picture their hands, say, okay, pass down, and then we'll pass down, which is what Greta was calling us to in that. So I've got some pictures for you of some people, and I'll show you a picture of the person, and then I'll tell you what they've done. And you're going to hear some names of organizations, and I'm going to tell you them because every time I tell you of an organization you didn't know about that's doing something good, that I wanted to lift your heart just a little to hear, oh my goodness, didn't know that. How great is that? So you'll see the person's face, and then I'll tell you a little bit what they do. And then between Donna and Babette, we're going to hear their voice. Calling us to remember the wisdom of Indigenous past for our very needy present. And the first person, so I'm going to ask you to put the first slide. Is that the first? Okay, thank you. It wasn't my first because I didn't do that right. So it will be Mita, which is the last quote. Is that the last or the first?
Second last. So I'll pass it to Dawn. Second last quote is Mita.
They gave us a special textbook in our social work degree because all the rest of the university had a book on statistics and mathematics, and we were so bad at it, they gave social workers their own book on math and numbers, And it still didn't work. None of us knew how to work the calculator. We didn't know how to turn it on, let alone do the calculations of the further research. So this is Mita. So we're together on that. Mita Yapaya is a young communicator from Brazil in a large community. And in his community, we built a dam. We built a dam that so rerouted everything that not only natural devastation took place, but social decay, social problems so badly that the suicide rate among young people rose to an astronomical amount. And so they made youth communication collectives where youth would gather together and support each other. And Mita he started and attends and supports numerous communication collectives for young people to transform the present and to take care of the future. He founded the Indigenous Youth Union of Mediozingo. He's a representative of the Indigenous Youth National Mobilization in Brazil. Never heard of it. Amazing. And I'm going to ask for the next picture. That's the next picture there. There's where he's doing some teaching. There's movies just on him doing the teaching of young people how to ground themselves in what is good. And he said this, Donna.
We are all from the same earth, from the same world, and all of us have the responsibility to take care of our planet. We cannot dream of a future if we cannot guarantee a present.
Thank you. Next slide. That is Josefa Carino Tauli, and she's a youth from the Philippines. She's a steering committee member and policy coordinator of the Global Youth Biodiversity Network. She advocates for rights in the UN Convention on Biological Diversity. She delivered a statement to the high-level segment of nature on COP15 in 2021. And she did it because she said two things. I was inspired by many youth who, despite the fear and frustration and the many challenges, find it in ourselves to hope, to act, and to persist. Next picture. And she said, Josefa.
Indigenous peoples embody the value of reciprocity with nature and each other, of knowing that we have the responsibility to sustain that which sustains us. This is something that everyone should learn from, and quickly, at this crucial window of opportunity to safeguard a sustainable and just future for all.
Next, Eric Markey belongs to the Terina people of Brazil. He graduated from university with a degree in journalism and works tirelessly to communicate for those in the area of Brazil. And he uses music, and he is a pioneer in that area of electronic music. Have you ever heard of electronic music? You may not find it as musical as others to our ears. It is catching on fire in his area for dance music. And if you want to take his name and Google it, you'll see him DJing, which is the next picture. DJing wherever he is, wherever he can hook it up. He seeks to portray in his music the struggles of indigenous peoples in partnership with indigenous singers from all over Brazil, using electronic music to connect his ancestors with the present. And he said,
We are the resistance of our people and territory, for there is no planet B.
No planet B. Next, Arcana Soreng. She belongs to the Kadia tribe. She is one of the members of the United Nations Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change. She's experienced in advocacy and research, and she documents, preserves, and promotes traditional knowledge and cultural practices of indigenous communities, honoring the ancestors' ways and molding them with scientific information to work. And she said,
Our ancestors have been protecting nature at the cost of their lives. We Indigenous youth are proud of our history, culture, and knowledge system, and are willing to work together toward climate action. Ensure us a seat at the decisions-making table. Include us, support us, and protect us.
The next slide is showing where she said that. Include us, support us, and protect us. And finally, Anish Shretha, next picture. He belongs to the Nuar Indigenous community, and he has been active in human rights for years and years and years. He's young, but he's worked about climate change, Indigenous peoples, and youth issues. I'm going to tell you what he belongs to simply because I didn't even know, again, that it existed, and it's worth celebrating, and it's worth cheering us on that these young people are doing these things. He's the executive director of the Youth for Environment, Education, and Development Foundation. Next picture. These are some of the things he's involved with. He partners a partnership coordinator of the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation Youth Platform, the UN Global Indigenous Youth Caucus. His focus is the use, exploitation, abuse, restoration, and natural regeneration of nature. And one of the things in the next picture, you'll see a very serious young man. He was asked to work at the UN to help combine the Santiago Network for Loss and Damage with the Warsaw International Mechanism for Loss and Damage. This young man is focused on the developing countries that are most hit by the actions of the developed countries. And so loss and damage is this young man's theme. And he works at the UN level and other levels to bring the teachings of the ancestors that were passed to him, pass it on. And he said,
"We have a mother, and that mother is our territory, our common home of all the indigenous peoples and everyone who inhabits this earth. We, indigenous youth, are the guard and keepers for the mother's future, for our common and shared future."
And those were 5 young people that the UN singled out among many to say, let's cheer them on, support them, care for them, and honor that they are standing as a bridge between the ancestral wisdom and the present, and they're making that bridge work. As does the feature for this morning, Nina Gwalinga. Nina Gwalinga, you're going to see her in a short movie. She was born in 1993. She's part of the Quechua-speaking community of Sarayaku in the Ecuadorian Amazon rainforest. Last week we went into the deepest sea, and today we go into the deepest jungle. The land of her area covers more than 330,000 acres, mostly pristine forests, with a population of about 1,200. She is an Ecuadorian activist, human rights, indigenous rights, natural life rights about the Ecuadorian Amazon. And she gave, next picture shows her, I'm sorry, I should have moved to her. There. I love that picture. She learned about the environment from her parents and her grandparents and her aunts and her uncles. She's the granddaughter of an activist. Her mother is an environmental activist. Her aunt is a land defender. Her uncle is a filmmaker who documents the Sarayaku resistance. Her father is a Swedish-speaking Finnish professor of biology in the Department of Geography and Geology at the University of Turku in Sweden. When she was young and the violence got very bad where she lived, she was taken to Sweden to be educated. She stayed at a boarding school, came back to her country on holidays, and then as an adult has stayed there, while she's also taking a degree in human rights at the Public Research University in Sweden. And because her mother is from this area in the Amazon, and her father is a biologist from the scientific world, she sees herself as a bridge, standing between her people and the rest of all of us, right down the middle of her. And what she has done as a bridge, and I'll take to the next slide, and then the next slide. What she has done is representing youth at the final hearing of the Inter-American Court on Human Rights in Costa Rica, winning a landmark case against the Ecuadorian government for violating Sarayaku rights and territory for oil drilling. She's a speaker at the Women's Earth and Climate Action Network. She spoke at COP22. She spoke at COP23. She spoke at COP25. And she said, "I call the world to refrain from extracting fossil fuels," links to last week, extracting it from the deepest ocean, extracting it from the lands of the Amazon, to listen to indigenous peoples who have protected their lands for millennia for solutions to the climate crisis. If we don't listen to indigenous people, if we don't listen to indigenous women, we're not going to get out of this crisis. She gave these lectures. She co-founded a business for Ecuadorian women to make a living with handcrafted, sustainably done. And here's what she said. "My inspiration comes from the earth itself, all the beauty of life expressed in so many ways. But my motivation comes from the people around me who are fighting every day to protect their families and their home, the Amazonian rainforest." And I love that idea of my inspiration comes from life. Life matters to me so much when I see it that I want to be inspired to do something to preserve it. It's worth preserving, and the people that rely on it are worth preserving. My motivation comes from the people around me who are doing what they can, who are doing what they must, who are doing what they should. Greta found a short movie, that features this woman, this amazing woman, with an amazing story. And it takes us from a mountaintop to water. And it's not very long, but it's called The Living Forest. And we'll see it together, but I encourage you when you get home to go to, again, online and look at it more closely. And then if you Google it, there's different perspectives on this amazing story that goes from a mountaintop to a river in Paris. So the movie, The Living Forest, the Amazonian tribes people who sailed down the Seine. The movie, there we go. They built a canoe and they paddled it down the Seine in Paris to say, this is our culture. Our ancestors have handed us this wisdom, and we're asking you to honor it, to help us protect our world, and to let us help you protect all of our world together. And it just struck me over and over. I watched it a couple of times. And the idea of listening to a different culture, the idea of listening to people that see things differently than us, the expansion that has to happen in our mind to say, we don't have a bead on this. If we did, it wouldn't be going the way it is. So opening to another culture, other people, but also, as Greta was stressing, the passing it down from generation to generation in that forest was working. It can be improved, but it was working. And so that idea of receiving from others the necessary wisdom for all of us, many voices, the living forest, the living planet. And so every time I think of the canoe, I think what they brought with it into a new place, and what we can do, even just the sharing this morning, bring some new perspective into it could be old wisdom, it could be ancient wisdom, it could be our ancient values, it could be our contemporary values, to bring it in and welcome it. I love the picture of a Ecuadorian canoe paddling down a river in Paris. Probably had never happened. And that when we talked about So Ringo's saying, I want to be a bridge. I want to bridge the cultures, and that's for all of us, is to bridge. I said to Ruth before we started, I said, these young people, it's so encouraging to see young people doing this, is standing there as a bridge, not saying we've got the right answer. Our culture has so much wisdom to share. So I'm going to ask us to sing the song we sang before. And if each one of us could take that message in our canoe, that may our life be a song that sings out the health and the welfare and the care for everybody. So may our life be as a song.
I'll invite you to stand if you're ready to do so. If not, please feel comfortable to stay seated. Sing this one together again.
To have been born in this place and in this time is privilege. To having been born in a place where you have watched people die to protect nature is a responsibility. And so our responsibility, those of us who have protected our lives at a cost to nature, is to go into this world and see it clearly through eyes that must be opened and must be able to find ways to support nature, those in the world who are seeking to support and care for it, and to the future of our future's children. So take that into the world. Use the special gift that each one of you has: communicator, carer, thinker, speaker, musician, wise one. Take those gifts into the world and find a way for us to do this work. Go in peace.
Become a sustaining champion of West Hill United's work by committing to an automatic monthly donation. Learn more or donate now through Canada Helps.